morning.
Good morning.
Today we're going to start on Ayin Beis 72. Hey, Ayin Beis Amid Aleph. And we're up to the word Supliga de Rababa. Supliga de Rababa Barkana. It's like in the middle of the page. The last Gemara we had was Rav Ika Bar Oven says in the name of Rav Hananel, in the name of Rav. So, thank Hashem that we're able to learn every day. English. So Rav Ika Bar Oven said in the name of Hananel, name of Rav, that's a city called Chalzai Navid, which is like on a river. That's the people in the city have a perfect lineage. Anyway, Abaya said, don't listen to him. Why not? Because he actually has a Yavama that comes from there, and which means his brother's wife, which he wants to marry. So you can't trust him that he's saying that what he's saying because he wants to marry this woman. Well, he tells to Amalaya to Didi, he says, is this my statement? It's Rav Hananel. So they went and asked Rav Hananel, and he says, yeah, that's exactly that. He said in the name of Rav Hananel. They asked Rav Hananel. He says that it's, he heard from Rav that this city has a perfect lineage. You can marry anyone from that city. You don't have to ask any questions. Well, Upliga de Rababa Barkana, that's what we're holding. And he argues on Rababa Barkana, Dam Rababa Barkana. Rababa Barkana says, My diksiv, Bayanchim, Becholach, Bechover, Bechover Nar, Goizen Vari Madai. This is talking about when Shalmanesar, the king, came and captured the territories of the north, and he exiled all the tribes. Where did he exile them to? He exiled them to Cholach, Chaber, Goizen, Vari Madai. And that's what destroyed the south. This is talking this 100 years earlier, when the northern tribes were exiled, the 10 tribes. So these people were taken away. Cholach zu Chalzain. See, Cholach is Chalzain. And Chavor, which is the next city, is zu Hadayev. Nahar Guzen zu Ginzak. Ari Madai zu Chamdan v'Chavrisa. This is the cities of Madai. This is Chamdan and its surrounding cities. Barmila is Nahavid v'Chavrisa. Some say this is Nahavid in the surrounding cities. That's what we're talking about. My Chavrisa. What does it mean, the surrounding cities? Amar Shmuel, Krach, Mushki, Chuski, Verumki, those are the surrounding cities. Well, Amar Rabbi Yochanan v'Kulam Lipsol. So Rabbi Yochanan says that all the places where the 10 tribes were exiled, all of those places are problematic to marry women from there. You can say, oh, I come from the 10 lost tribes in the kingdom of Israel. Why is that a problem? Because non-Jews lived with the Jewish women, and it's two options. One is either a non-Jew that lives with the Jewish women, the child is a mamzer. That's a possibility. We don't hold like that, but that's a possibility. It's one opinion. And even if it's not a mamzer, but nevertheless, it's still a blemish. So all of these cities has a blemish. So it's not like the way Rav Hananel said in the name of Rav, that it's like Pumpadisa. No, it's not. Kasalka daita mushchi hainu mushchani. One of the places that Shmuel said was Mushchi. That's one of the Nahavid, B'Chavriseh. That's one of the small cities of Nahavid. We think that's Mushchani. The problem is, Mushchani is a perfect city of perfect lineage. Well, Ela Mushki Lachud, Mushkani Lachud. It's a different city. Yeah. It's like Morristown or Morristown. You know, it's right, those are two different places. You get on the bus, you end up in the wrong place. Exile is Pumpadisa. Yeah. Pumpadisa meant that it was that has perfect lineage. And the Mendy and the Golem, in the comic book. So Mendy's sister says, Mendy, how do you spell New York? The city or the state? Okay. He says, okay, here it goes. Klas Alen Bepume Alan Bepume Ben Shina. This is a pasuk in Daniel. Daniel has a dream where there's 4 animals that are coming out of the water. And each animal that comes out of the water represents another one of the nations that are going to come up. Anyway, the first animal was a lion, and that represents Bavel. The second animal was a bear, it represents Persia. The third animal was a leopard, it represents Yavan. I think the fourth animal was, I don't know even what the animal was, it had iron teeth or something, and it represents Rome. The first 2. Well, those were different kings. Bavel is referring to Nebuchadnezzar, and Persia was probably Koresh.
Because when I thought when we take 4 exiles,
yeah, those are the exiles.
Oh,
yeah. Here it's like the kings that are coming and conquering each other. Well, it says that 3 ribs were in the mouth of the bear. This is the second animal that comes out. And Rabbi Yochanan, what are these 3 ribs that are in the mouth of the bear? Now, what this represents is that Persia owns this territory, but it doesn't always have it because it's in the mouth. Sometimes it's in, sometimes it's out. So Chalzan, Hadayev, and Etziv, and Shapam, Belatan, and Pam, and Paltasan. These are these 3 cities that sometimes it was under Persia and sometimes it wasn't. Yeah, someone told me that her mother, and her grandmother were born in the same house, in the same bed, but all in different countries. One of these in Europe, the battles and this and that, every time they went back and forth. So these cities, they sometimes it's under Persia, sometimes it's not. Now it says Va'aru Chiva Achrei Tinyana Damiladayv. I'm sorry. Yeah, this is in the same. This is the second animal that came up after, and it was comparable to a bear. Yeah, that's what it says. Tani Rav Yosef taught Elu Parsiyim Sha'ichlem Shaisim Kedayv Balim Kedayv Megadlim Seir Kedayv. This is referring to the Persians. What does the Persians have to do with the bear? It says, well, they eat and drink like a bear. They're surrounded in fat like a bear. They grow their hair like a bear. And they're also not settled like a bear. Apparently, if you tie a bear up, it keeps like trying to pull its way free. So that's how they are. The Persians also, they're also like, I guess, impatient. Rabbi Ami, when Rabbi Ami would see a Persian that was riding, Amar Hainu Duvanayda, look at that, that's a moving bear. Amar le Rebbe le Levi. Rebbe told his student Levi, is a famous student, Levi Barsisi, his name. He says, Harini Parsim, show me what the Persians look like. And Amar le, so he tells him, Daimim l'chayol shel beis David, they're comparable to the soldiers of the house of David. They're very strong people. Harini Chavrin, show me the people that are called Chavrin. This was a group of people in Persia that were, they had some sort of thing with light, I think. They had some other worship. What does it say over there what they are? Zoroastrians? What do they call them? More, okay. Well, there was a group over there. Daimon Malachi Chabala, they're comparable to the angels of destruction. Harini Yishmaelim, show me the Arabs. It says Daimon Lasirim Shal Besakisi, they're comparable to the demons of the bathroom. Apparently back then they wore black, and the demons of the bathroom were also wearing black. Okay. Harini Talmid Chachamim Shabababel. Show me the sages in Babylonia. It says Daimon Malachi Asharis. They're comparable to the angels of the celestial angels. They wear white. And Nicha Nafshe the Rebbe, when Rebbe was passing away, Omar, he said in a way of prophecy, it says like this: Humanya Bavel says that there's a place in Bavel called Humanya. Kul Amanai, you should know that everyone in that city is from Ammon. They're not Jewish. Maskaria Bavel. There's a place called Maskaria. Kula de Mamzeri, everyone over there are Mamzerim. Birka Bavel, there's a place Birka in Bavel. Shnei Achim Yesh. There's 2 brothers in that city that they exchange wives, one with another. And Birta de Satyaka Babel. There's another place that has strayed from Hashem. It says Hayim Sarach Re'amakim. They've strayed today from Hashem. The Akvi Peri Bekavri B'Shabbata. They've put fish in a tank on Shabbos. But also B'Tzad B'Shabbata, and then they take it out. It was like some sort of what do they call it? Farming, fish farm. And then they take it out on Shabbos. B'Shamtinu Rabachai Barabaisha. Rabachai Barabaisha put them in Cherem. B'Shtambat, and then they left the religion. They converted. Akra Da'agmak Babel. There's a place Akra Da'agma. And Ada Barava Yeshba. There's a person there by the name of Ada Barava. Today he's sitting in the lap of Avram. Now, Rashi says some people think that means that he died. If that's the case, then that wouldn't be the Rav Ada Barava that we know of. Rashi thinks that it's Rav Ada Barava, where he's sitting in the lap of Avram, means that he had his bris. Only problem is, Rashi says that we find him many years later, in the days of Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, many years later, several generations later. They must have lived very long. Now, what happened by Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak was that Rav Dimi came to town. Rav Dimi from Nardoi came to town. It's Gemara Bava Basra, and he had these dried figs or dates or something, I forget, and he wanted to sell them. So he in order for him to sell them first in the market, he would have to be a Talmud Chacham. Otherwise, they would have everyone else sell, and then he could sell later. But at that point, could be he won't have as many customers. It could go bad. So Rava sends Rav Ada Barava to go examine to see if he's a Talmud Chacham. He asked him a question about a basket that an elephant swallows, and it comes out from the other end. Is it considered tamei when it comes out the other side? Is it considered manure, or is it considered a basket? So Rav Dimi doesn't know the answer. So he says, okay, you're not a Talmud Chacham. Anyway, Rav Dimi, all his things spoiled. He wasn't able to sell it. And he went to, where did he go to? Went to Rabbi Yosef to complain. Went to complain to Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef said, who bothered you? The person that bothered you should, his punishment should come. Well, punishment came and Rav Ada Barava died. Anyway, they said, anyway, over there, in that Gemara, there's a whole machlekes. Who was the cause of him to die? Rabbi Yosef says it was me. Rav Dimi says it was me. Abaya says it was me. He didn't, because Rav Ada Barava would say, instead of going to eat bones by Abaya, you should learn by go to Rava and eat the meat. So he didn't treat me properly. That's why. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says it was me, because I was waiting for him to come to help me prepare the shiur of Ada Barava, and anyway, he didn't come. So I said, we're waiting for the coffin of Ada Barava. He made that comment. Anyway, everyone took responsibility for his death. So, but we're talking about now, in the days of Rebbe, then you would have Rebbe's students, the generation of Rav and Shmuel. You would have his students, the generation of Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda. Then you would have their students, which is like Rav Chizda, Rabbah, and Rav Yosef. You know, their students, which is Rava and Abaya. And at that time was Rav Nachman, and Rava's students is Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak. At that time, you have Rav Ada Barava, talking about like 5-6 generations that he lived. Anyway, you have to be a big Talmud Chacham to know that. I don't know. Look up that Gemara. No, a vessel that's made out of manure is not tamei, since it went through the body, so could be considered manure. I don't know. You gotta check it out. Tamei means impure. Is it impure or is it pure? Impure. Why? Oh, that means it's pure. That's the opposite. A vessel that's made out of manure would be pure. No, but it's not considered a vessel. That's the question. You follow? Okay. Anyway.
Ditch digger, how we put fish.
Yeah.
He says he extricated them and they became apostates.
Right.
What do we learn from that? Is that excessive punishment, or was that correct? No comment on that.
Yeah, that's hard to say. It's hard to say. I don't know. The professor's asking if it was appropriate for the person that was Chal Shabbos to be excommunicated because after that he becomes an apostate. Maybe they didn't treat him properly. Yeah. Okay, Rebbe continues. He says, "Hayom noilad Rav Yehuda beBavel." Today, Rav Yehuda is born in Bavel. Rav Yehuda is Rav Yehuda by Yecheskel. He's a famous student of Rav. The master taught Shmeis Rabbi Akiva noilad Rabbi. When Rabbi Akiva passed away, Rebbe was born. Rabbi was a student, a chavrusa of Rabbi Akiva's students, Rabbi Akiva's student sons. That was his Rebbe's chavrusa. So Rebbe was like a grandson age of Rabbi Akiva. In other words, like Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon, or Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yosef were Rebbe's chavrusas. When Rebbe passed away, Rabbi Yehuda was born. That's exactly what we're saying here. Rebbe's on his deathbed. That's what he's saying. When Rabbi Yehuda passed away, Rava was born. And when Rava passed away, Rav Ashi was born. Okay. Yeah, Rabbi Tzal Ranchberg quotes a different girsa in the Rambam. It says that Rav Ashi was born before before Rava passed. Anyway, whatever the case is. This teaches us that a tzaddik doesn't pass away until there's another tzaddik that was created that's similar to him. The sun shines, the sun sets, sunrise, sunset, right? You have to sing that. Before the sunset of Eli, the son of Shmuel was already shining. Before the candle of God had gone out, Shmuel was lying, and he got his first prophecy then. Remember when he's called Shmuel, and he runs to Eli. Eli tells him, next time say, at first he tells him, go back to sleep. It wasn't me. Then he tells him, go back to sleep. Then he tells him, next time say, here I am, God, I'm ready to listen. Your servant is ready to listen. It was his first time receiving prophecy. He didn't know what the voice was. Okay. So, Tziva Hashem Yaakov Sviv of Tzarav. Hashem commanded around Yaakov his enemies. Hashem put the enemies. Who are the enemies? Rav Yehuda Kiddushin Humanya L'Pum Nara. That's Humanya. That's which we said before. Humanya. Rabbi said that this place Humanya is full of the nation of Ammon. That's the enemies. Okay. Vayihi Kihinave Upaltiyo Ben Beniyo Meis Be'epel Al Panai Be'etzak Kol Gadol V'Amra Ha Hashem Alekim. As I was prophesying, this is Ezekiel. This is Yecheskel talking. And Paltiyo, the son of Beniyo, dies. I fell on my face and I cried out in a big voice. I said, "Whoa, alas, right? God, the people are dying." Okay, now there's a question over here. What does he mean? Does he mean that it's not good that he died, or does he mean that I can't believe he died so peacefully and he should have been punished harder? Well, Rav Shmuel, this is machlekes. It's machlekes. One says that what Yecheskel was saying was that he was a big tzaddik. He shouldn't have just died so young. Other one says that no, I can't believe he died on his peacefully. He should have had like a more a difficult death. Mandar Malatayva, the one that says that he was good. Kiha the Istandara, the Meshan. What happened was there was a ruler of Meshan. He was the son-in-law of Nebuchadnezzar. He sends to his father-in-law. He says, all of those captives that you just got, you didn't send us anyone that could help and serve us. You brought in all of these captives. You send us some slaves. So he's going to send some Jewish slaves over to Meshan. Amalei Paltiyo ben Yod, so Paltiyo ben Yod says to Nebuchadnezzar, Ananda Chashvina Neka Mikamachacha. Va'avdines lahasem. we are important people, telling about the Jews. We're going to serve you. Let's send our slaves over there. So he protected the Jewish people from becoming slaves. Amar Navi, the prophet says, Yecheskel says, Mishasa Teva B'Yisrael Yamas B'Chatzi Yamav. He should die so young, someone that does so good to the Jews. Mandar Malara, what's the other opinion? It says, Vatava Yasi Al Shar Beis Hashem Akadmania Pani Kadema. I came to the gate of Hashem, the eastern gate. In Pesach Hashar Esem V'Chamisha Ish. Be'ereb B'Seichem Es Yaznia Ben Ezer V'Spalteo Ben Yadu Sariyam. There were 25 people there. I see Yaznia and Paltio were there. And it also says, I was taken into Yecheskel. All of this is in prophecy. Yecheskel was across the river. He was in Babylonia, but he's seeing what's going on in the house of Hashem. In Pesach Hashem bein ulam bein hamizbeach comes inside. This is all in the prophecy. It comes in between the inner room and the second in the outer room of the sanctuary and the mizbeach. And there's 25 people there. Achareim al heichal Hashem. Their backs are to Hashem. Upneim kedma. They're facing east. If they're facing east, then the back is to the west. So what are you telling me? The back is to Hashem. In Beis Mikdash, the west was the Kodesh Kodashim. The east was the other side. So what does it mean that backs to Hashem? What happened was they uncovered their back, and they were defecating in front of God, in front of the sanctuary. The prophet saying, someone that does this should die on his deathbed, should die on his bed, just a peaceful death. Okay, now we have a machlekes. Machlekes Rav and Shmuel. One says this, one says that. Who says what? A lot of times the Gemara does this. It says we don't know who says what. The Gemara now tries to analyze. It's probably Shmuel that said that he was a bad guy. Shmuel said in the name of Shmuel, Mishchani, that city of Mishchani, is considered perfect when it comes to yichus, which means that he didn't protect the Jewish people from coming there. No, the Jewish people did go there as slaves. So it must be that what happened with Paltio, it must have been that the other thing happened, that he was the one that he did not protect the Jewish people. Well, second, Meshan. It's Meshan, not Mushchani. Meshan, one of the things Shmuel said is that Meshan has no problem of slaves, no problem of mamzeris. It's only that the Kayanim over there were not careful to marry non-divorcees. They would actually marry divorcees. So therefore, a Kayan should not take a girl from there because they would be halalim. But otherwise, that was no problem. Which basically means that the people there were Jewish. It says, Leila Mei Malach. Really, I could tell you, Shmuel Amar L'Tayva. Shmuel actually said good, and he protected the people from coming there. The Jewish people from coming there. And the slaves that were there, you see, if the slaves that were there were non-Jews, that would mean that Paltio had protected them, protected the Jews from coming and sent the non-Jews there. Non-Jews there, then you wouldn't say that there was no problem for marrying from there. It should be a problem. There was a bunch of non-Jews over there. So, right? And now you're saying that you can just marry from there without even asking questions. So really, Shmuel said, no, we did protect them. And who was sent to Meshan were the non-Jews. So why does Shmuel say you're allowed to marry from there? Shmuel follows his reasoning. That if someone has a slave, but the slave goes free because he becomes ownerless or whatever, he's just not behaving as a slave. The master just says, okay, you're fine, just go. He doesn't need a document, deed of manumission. Doesn't mean a slave of a man, not a slave of a woman. If the master if he's not in servitude, then he's not considered a slave and he's free. So therefore, even though they sent non-Jewish slaves there, once they go free, then they're Jewish. And that's why if you're going to take someone from there as a wife, obviously they're free. Right? How do you get them as a wife? Must be they're free. They're free means that there's no problem of lineage become Jewish. Okay. How does that come up? Oh, you're telling me in the verse. In the verse that's quoted, it says that all the slaves of a person need to be circumcised. That's what you're saying. Okay. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel. Zudiv Reb Meir. Now we're going back to what we mentioned in the Mishnah. Mishnah said that a bunch of people came up from the exile to Israel and came from Bavel, and we clarified Bavel. Bavel is now clean from any lineage problem. Israel, second to Bavel. However, any other land is problematic. Try to take a wife from some other place, and that could be a problem. You have to find out to make sure they're kosher. Well, that's Zudiv Reb Meir, right? That's the opinion of Reb Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says name of Shmuel. What Shmuel is introducing to us is that was only one opinion. There's another opinion that says you don't have to worry. Everywhere people are kosher. Very lenient opinion. Ameimar allowed Rav Huna bar Nassan to marry a woman from Mechuzah. And Mechuzah was out of the border of what we said yesterday was what were the borders of Bavel that was considered that everyone over there was kosher. He took a wife from one of the cities that was outside that territory. Amalei Rav Ashi, my daitach. Rav Ashi asked Ameimar was a friend of Rav Ashi, says, what are you thinking? You following that lenient opinion that was said in the name of Rabbi Yehuda, in the name of Shmuel, that's only that to be strict is only Reb Meir's view, but the sages are more lenient. Rav Kana, the yeshiva Rav Kana never taught that. Rav Papa the yeshiva Rav Papa never taught that. Rav Svidle no one teaches like that. Nevertheless, Ameimar didn't accept it. Rav Svid the Nardai, because he heard it from Rav Svid of Nardai, so he had his own tradition. He didn't accept what Rav Ashi told him. In the future, Hashem is going to purify all the mamzerim. They're not going to be mamzerim anymore. That's what Rabbi Yossi says. Or the Nesinim, which is the Gibeonites. Reb Meir says no, Hashem's not going to do that. They're still going to be mamzerim. Amar Rabbi Yossi says, but doesn't it say in the verse, I will sprinkle upon you the purifying the water, pure waters, and I will purify you. If you read further in the verse, it says, I will purify you from all your impurities, from all your idolatry. He's only going to purify them from their impurities and idolatry. But not because of mamzeres. The mamzeres are still going to stay. Rabbi Yossi says, okay, but when you read further in the pasuk after that, it says, I will purify you. So that end of the verse says that they're going to be pure even from mamzeres. According to Reb Meir, we can understand it says that there's going to be mamzerim in the future, and the Yeshiv mamzer be'ashtay. It says that the mamzer is going to be separated to Ashdod. That's where they're going to be placed in the future. But according to Rabbi Yossi, there's not going to be any mamzerim. What does that mean? We have to translate the word mamzer different. Whenever we have in Shas, the Targum, I think it's always Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef that quotes it, because Rabbi Yosef was blind, and you're not supposed to study the written Torah by heart, so he wasn't able to read it. So instead, he studied the Targum by heart, and so Rabbi Yosef was an expert in the Targum. To memorize the translation of the Torah. So, Uncles, yeah, the Targum, the Uncles. And so Rabbi Yosef taught the Targum. He said, Yasun Beis Yisrael l'Reichtzon. Did Jewish people settled in peace, Ba'arayan, in their cities, Davidama Bala where they used to be strangers. Not that they're mamzerim, but there used to be strangers. The mamzer means that strangers. By Yeshiv, mamzer b'ashtad means that they used to be strangers and now they were settled. But not that there's mamzerim. That's how Rabbi Yossi would explain that verse. Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel halacha Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yehuda says name of Shmuel, the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. Now, how do you say the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi? Well, when Mashiach comes, we'll figure that out. You see on the side, he's quoting a Tosfos in Sanhedrin and in Zvachim. Maybe that's Tosfos has this question in other Masechtas. When it says the halacha, and the Gemara asks, Hilchas Mashiach, like, why are you telling me the halacha when Mashiach comes? Well, no. Anyway, okay. Amar Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef says, he loved Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel halacha Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yossi Elio Mapik Minon Tzivrani Kilarin. If Rabbi Yehuda, if Rabbi Yosef didn't say that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda name of Shmuel, that the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi, so then Elio would come, he would take out a bunch of groups in chains of all the mamzerim that were there. But we said no, that he's going to purify the mamzerim, so we won't have those groups in chains. Kalarin means in collars, prisoners. Tan Rabbanan. So then the Bryce Ger Nasi Mamzeres. A convert is allowed to marry a mamzeres, a woman that was born from a probably incestual relationship, or from a married woman relationship with the children as a mom. Oh, the ger that marries the mom to the children also, but he's permissible to marry. That we're just talking about the marriage itself, and the rabbi did perform the ceremony. So then the kids will be mamzerim, and they'll have to marry other mamzerim or create a little community. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer,
they get married by a rabbi?
Yeah, the rabbi could perform the ceremony here. It's not going to say on the invitation.
With regards to someone from like Noah or Adam, like after a certain amount of generations.
Mitzri after 3 generations. Yeah. Okay, that's what Rabbi Yossi holds. Rabbi Yehuda Ger la yisam mamzeres. Rabbi Yehuda says no. A ger is limited who he's allowed to marry. He cannot marry a mamzer. Echad ger, echad eved meshucher, b'chalal mutar b'kehenes. However, a ger and a slave that was freed and the chalal, a kohen that was disqualified, are allowed to marry a kohenes, which means the daughter of a kohen. A convert can marry a daughter of a kohen. My time with the Rabbi Yossi. Why does Rabbi Yossi hold that a ger is allowed to marry a mamzeres? Well, chamisha kalik sivi. It says in the verse 5 times the word congregation. We're talking about over here where it says that this group of people can't come into the congregation. These people can't come into the congregation. These people can't come in. So it's 5 times who can't come into the congregation. Kahal, it's called. Kahal is like tehillah. It's the congregation. One of them is telling me chad l'kayanim, that kayanim are considered a congregation, and they can't marry the mamzer. No. The tribe being by the male. Okay, excellent. But she is a kohenes, even if her mother is not. So she is a kohenes. So now we're not talking about what she is. Now we're talking about who she's going to get married to. It doesn't have to do with if she follows the mother or the father now. Even though it follows the father, but she can still marry a convert. That's nothing, right? If it followed the mother, she would still be able to marry a convert. It doesn't.
The father is the one that performs the services, and they will teach the sons how to perform. Okay, and that's why probably one of the men by the male wouldn't be allowed. The male one wouldn't be allowed to or convert or
No, that wouldn't make a difference. That the fact is, a kohen is not allowed to marry a convert. It doesn't have to do with if it follows the mother or the father. It's not allowed to marry a convert because he has a certain sanctity that he has to maintain. It doesn't have to do with it has to do with that this person is not eligible for a kohen. Oh, okay. Doesn't say. Doesn't say. Okay. You're trying to say that because the female doesn't serve in the temple, so they're not as holy. That's what I'm saying.
No, God forbid. I don't want to say that they're not as holy, but they don't have the responsibility of teaching the kids how to serve in the temple. And like that, so
All right.
that won't be broken.
I don't think it's going to be broken anyway. But it doesn't say.
For example, if she marries a convert, the convert has no idea how to do the Kohen food. Okay. So then the kids are not good.
Okay. Okay. She's allowed to. One of these times that it says kal is referring to kayanim. Chad Leviim, one of them is referring to the Levites. Chad Yisraelim, one is referring to the Israelites. Okay, that's 3 we've used up. There's another 2 to go. Chad Lemishri Mamzer B'Shtuki. One of them is coming to allow a mamzer, which is a definite problem, is allowed to marry someone that's a doubtful problem. Shtuki. Shtuki is someone that is probably a woman that's not married, single woman that has a child. And when you ask her, when the child says, "Daddy," she says, "Be quiet." Okay, shtuki says, "Be quiet," because they don't know who the father is. Well, that doesn't mean that the child is a mamzer. She's just not saying who the father is. Well, now the mamzer is allowed to marry a shtuki. Now that's a doubt with a definite. Okay, it's a lenient view. It's a lenient concept. Usually, we would say that a mamzer should only be allowed to marry another mamzer.
Like
Out of wedlock, but it doesn't mean that the person, that the father was a mamzer. Out of wedlock, the child could still be a kosher child. Right. But nevertheless, this child is allowed to marry a mamzer. The kids would be mamzerim. We're saying even if we don't know any mamzer here, we just don't know who the father is. But because we don't know the fathers, it could be a mamzer. We already permit the mamzer to marry this child. Kadla Mishrei Shtuki B'Yisrael, and the next time it says call, it's coming to allow a Shtuki, which is that doubt case, to marry a regular Jew. Even though a minute ago you just told me that they can marry a mamzer, which means that they have a problem with their lineage. At the same time, you say no, they don't have any problem. They can marry a regular Jew. There's no mamzeres there. Perfectly fine. Kal Gerim La Yikri Kal. But when it comes to converts, it's not considered a kahal, and therefore they're allowed to marry a mamzer. In other words, we've used up all the kahals. All the time it says kahal, congregation. We've used it up. We don't have any left for the converts, and therefore the converts are permissible to marry a mamzeres. Rabbi Yehuda, what does Rabbi Yehuda do? Rabbi Yehuda said that a convert cannot marry a mamzeres, so he's got to get one extra kal back in here. So he says, Kayanim and Leviim chad kal nafti. The tribe of Kayanim and Leviim are one kal. We have one isala kal gerim. So now the gerim are not allowed to marry the mamzer because the converts have another kahal. Ibayasem, if you want, you could say Hachinami Trey Kalinino. The truth is that Kayanim and Leviim are actually 2, but mamzer b'shtuki be Yisrael mechad kal nafti. That case that we said, that a mamzer can marry a shtuki and a shtuki can marry a regular Yisrael, that's taught from one kal. Why? It says, La yavi mamzer b'kal Hashem. A mamzer is not allowed to marry into the kal of Hashem, the congregation. Mamzer vada Yehuda la yava. It's only a definite mamzer that can't marry in. A mamzer suffix, but a suffix mamzer yava is allowed to. And then we say, b'kal vada Yehuda la yava. Only into the definite congregation is the mamzer can't come. B'kal suffix yava. So both of those things I learned from this. Which means that a shtuki can, which is a mamzer, vadai is allowed to marry a shtuki because that's not kahal vadai, and a shtuki, which is a mamzer suffix, is allowed to marry in. It's only a mamzer vadai that's not allowed to marry in. Okay. Iba Yisayim, if you want, we could say Haninami Trey Kalinino. The truth is that those is also two kals. Now we really have nothing left. The time the Rabbi Yehuda Mehacha. Rabbi Yehuda has another source. It says Hakol chukachas lachem v'lager hagar. It says in the verse, it says for the congregation, there's one law for you and for the convert. So you see, it says one law for you and the convert. Rabbi Yaisi chukachas efsekinyan. Yaisi says that when it says one law, that divides it up. And which means that the ger is not in the congregation, and not part of that congregation, so it doesn't have that restriction of marrying the mamzer, and it's allowed to marry a mamzer. Okay. Echad ger, echad even meshucher v'chol mutarim b'kehenes. He said that a convert and a freed slave and the disqualified kohen are allowed to marry a kehenes. Rav, this is a proof for Rav. Dam Rav Yudah Rav, this is the name of Rav. Kosher women are allowed to marry invalid kohenim. Kehenes, a regular woman, is allowed to marry even a chalal or a convert. It's no problem. Okay. Darash Rab Zera b'Mechuzah. Rab Zera taught in Mechuzah. Now, if you remember, Mechuzah was outside of the pale, was outside the area. That's Meishon. Mechuzah was where Rava was. So, find Rava.
You looking at the map in the book?
Yeah, I'm looking at the map in the book. Do you know where Mechuzah?
Yeah, just look to the right of Surah of Pumpadisa. It's right there.
So Mechuzah is over here. Okay, it's over there. Yeah, Avram said take the 5.
Huh?
Okay, we got it. The D train. So, he taught in Mechuzah, ger mutar b'mamzeres. The ger is allowed to marry a mamzer woman. Well, people in Mechuzah were very angry, and Ragmu kolayam besragaya, they threw their esregim at him.
Oh.
They were very upset that he would say that. What do you mean? The converts they're not like part of the Jewish community. Amarava miyikad darish milsa ki hai beduchta deshchichi gyuri. He says, he tells to Rab Zera, he says, how could someone in a place where there's a lot of converts, how could you say a statement like that? Darash Rava ben Mechuzah, Rava taught in Mechuzah, ger mutar b'kehenes. A convert is allowed to marry a Kohen, a daughter of a Kohen. Oh, Tanu b'shiroi, they put silk cloths on him. Other Darash, then he said, ger mutar b'mamzeres, that a convert is allowed to marry a mamzeres. Amalei, afsida talakamaisa. You've lost your first, from your first statement. We take it back, the honor. Amalo, the tabaluchu abdiluchu. What do you mean? He says, I'm doing good for you. I opened up the pool of women that, there's much more people you can marry. You can marry from this side, you can marry from that side, whoever you want. There's a much more, there's no, the shidduch crisis you can take from any side. Okay. Right, exactly. The halacha is ger mutar b'kehenes. The rule is that a ger is allowed to marry the daughter of a kohen. Mutar b'mamzeres can also marry a mamzeres. Mutar b'kehenes. Why they mutar b'kehenes? Lehuzur cheers nasib psul. Like we said, that a kosher woman is allowed to marry an invalid person. Okay, which would be a chalal or even a convert. And we're gonna rule like Rabbi Yaisi, not like Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, let's go further. Elu hein shtuki. Here are the people that are silenced. Kol shemakir, anyone that recognizes How do we say in the Mishnah? He knows his mother, but he doesn't know his father, right? Goes from market. He knows his mother, but he doesn't recognize who his father is. Amar Rava said, Dvar Torah. According to the Torah, shtuki kasher, perfectly permissible to marry anyone. We said over here, what we say in the Mishnah, that a shtuki is. We didn't actually discuss it. Oh no, we did. At the beginning of the Mishnah, we said that a shtuki can marry a mamzer or another shtuki or a sufi, but not into the congregate, not into Kayan Levi Yisrael and all of those. Okay, shtuki has some limitations. Rava says that's only rabbinic. Those limitations are rabbinic. Biblically, it's fine. Yeah, but that's biblically. Now we're saying, but rabbinically, there's a problem. Okay, so my time, what's the reason? Look, we have a woman over here. She's a single woman. She's not married, right? Most people she's allowed to marry, right? And there's a minority of people that she can't. And if he went to her, called the parish miruba parish. So we say that must have left the majority, and the majority is our kosher people. And so therefore, the person that's by her, if you look at the odds are that statistically, this was probably not a mamzer that made her pregnant. My Amrit, so what are you going to say? What's the problem? Maybe she went to him. Whose house were they in? That's the question. Did he go to her house, or did she go to his house? If he went to her house, then called the parish miruba parish, then he left the majority. What majority? The statistics are that he's a kosher person. If he went to her, then you have to look everything as 50-50. Now, avale kavua, then it could be as a mamzer. Each person has a kavua, and each person could be a mamzer. The pasuk says that a mamzer shouldn't come into the congregation, but that's only if it's a definite mamzer vadai. But if it's a suffix, then you can't come into a congregation. We also say that only into a definite congregation, but not into a suffix congregation. That would work the other way. So shtuki puzzle. So why did we say that a shtuki cannot marry into the congregation? Either way, either the father is kosher because the father went to her, or if the father, we don't know if the father is kosher because she went to the father, but nevertheless, it says only a definite mamzer is a problem, not a doubtful mamzer. It's 50-50, it's a doubt. So the Gemara says, you have a problem. So it could be that maybe if he's going to marry a regular Jewish girl, could be he's going to be marrying his sister. We don't know who the father is of this man. The half-sister. Maybe he's going to marry a half-sister from his father. He's going to marry any girl. We don't know. Maybe maybe that man was the one that made this woman pregnant. Okay. If that's the case, shtukis layisa. So then how is he allowed to marry another shtuki? A shtukis. A shtuki shouldn't be allowed to marry shtukis because maybe he made this woman pregnant, he made that woman pregnant. He says, Kolki ha'ani mizani v'azli. Says, what do you think? This guy goes around making women pregnant? Apparently he does, but it's exactly the same one? No, okay. So bashtukis la yisa, shem yisa chesimi yaviv. What about the daughter of a shtukis? Maybe you see, we're going to see over here. He's allowed to marry a shtuk. So maybe even if he doesn't marry, maybe even if the girl that he's marrying is not the same father, but maybe. So what's he going to do? Because So he's going to marry a daughter of another of a shtukis. Could be. Well, we don't know about that, but it could be that maybe it's his sister. Basically, whoever he's going to marry, it could be that it's his that his father is the father of that person as well. It must be that what we're going to say is that it's not common for that to happen. So it's also not common that he's going to marry his sister. So that it should be the same person. So why are we making a big deal? It's only rabbinic. The rabbi said that they shouldn't marry in just to have the perfect lineage. Could be. It could be, yeah.
It's like two students that take this. The two students went there traveling in Rio de Janeiro on a trip to school. And one said, I grew up in Venezuela, the other one grew up in New York City. Very nice. And they like each other. Well, I have an Aunt Tilly. The other one says, I have an Aunt Tilly. Figure out that the fathers of both of them is the same. That when father was in Venezuela, he had an affair with a woman, and a kid. The kid went to the University of Miami, and then he traveled to New York, and he had an affair with another woman, right? And those two kids get together in Rio de Janeiro at dinner. They figure out that they have the same father, fortunately, before they got involved with each other more. So these cases do happen. These are all.
There's a book I read as a kid. It was called Sadia Weissman. I think it was Ben-Zion Führer who wrote the book. I think.
Isn't there a specific halakha that a man couldn't have wives in two different cities?
Yeah, that was the problem.
For exactly this reason.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah. So anyway, this book Sadia Weissman was this boy that he came from Yemen. And they stole the babies in the hospital and they sold them to rich people that couldn't have. Anyway, he wants to marry someone from Israel. Years later, he didn't know. The family mourned over him, and it turns out he wanted to marry his sister. I guess it's a common theme in books. But anyway, Rava says, Sufi kasher. Sufi is also kasher. Sufi is the one that doesn't know his mother or his father. What's an Asufi? Someone that was left in the train station or something. My timer. Biblically, he's kosher to marry anyone. Ashes ish bebaila. What's the problem? What do you think it is? It's a married woman, probably, that's giving her child, that's getting rid of her child because she had an affair. It's not a problem because we assume that it's from the husband, right? Rav Bilas telling Babal. You assume that most of the relations were from the husband. So Mayik, what are you concerned about? Mia Sarusas. Maybe it was a woman that wasn't really married yet, but she was betrothed. And then there's another problem that could be there's a married woman that her husband went to a distant country. This is a minority of people that are in that situation. So given the kapnuya v'kanami demachmas rabban, but we have other situations. We have people that are not married that would want to give up their child, just put them in the train station. We also have people that can't afford to keep the child because of famine or whatever. So it's just a doubt. It's 50-50. If it's a doubt, it's permissible. They only can't marry into the definite congregation of the Kalsafik Yavai. Why do we say that a Sufi is invalid? Maybe he's going to marry his sister from his father. But maybe you shouldn't marry an Asufi. Two of Asufis shouldn't get married because maybe it's both parents are the same, his father and his, right? You don't know who the mother is, you don't know who the father is. It could be it's this mamish the same. They gave up two kids. They put one in this train station, put one in that bus station. So it says, "Kol hani shadi vazi," but they're going to throw away all the kids like that. So basa sufi la yisa shem yisa chayse. You shouldn't marry the daughter of an asufi or asufis. Maybe it's going to be his sister. Rather, that's not so common. So we're not concerned about the other things. We're not concerned that Elamaila Asubiyuchsin. Rather, it's a advantage that we did for Yuchsin that you should only marry each other. If you find that he has a circumcision, then there's no problem of a Sufi because if he wasn't a kosher child, they wouldn't have gone out of their way to do the circumcision. All the bagels and lox. Okay, I guess we have to leave it over here on the top. We'll continue. That's Hashem tomorrow.